I've spent the past 26 years of my career learning different technologies and tools to really either amplify my service or streamline and reduce my sales cycle so I can sell more real estate. I know as a real estate professional, my highest and best use of my time is with my client. That's it. For me to now know, oh my gosh, there are services, there are companies out there who have tools and services that are combined to where I just hand things off and I'm like, here, you guys go do this. This whole thing is about getting our time back and solving the whole problem of churn and attrition in real estate. I don't want to leave this industry, but I got to figure out how not to spend my time doing things I shouldn't be doing. Hey, and welcome to this episode of the Chris and Garry Show. My name is Garry Creath. I am joined by my partner in crime, Chris Scott. And today we are delighted to be joined by our special guest and the VP of Marketing for the Paperless Agent, Kyle. So welcome, Kyle. In the Chris and Garry Show, we do talk about all things real estate, and we feel like we have a lot to offer you because Chris and I have a combined of over 50 years experience in the real estate industry, and we're here to share all of that with you. And so, if you like today's episode, make sure that you click the like button, subscribe to this channel, and then also make sure that you search for us on the socials of @the Paperless Agent. And with that, let's get into this.
How we find customers in real estate is oftentimes misunderstood. Back in the day, for example, Garry, you were given a phone book and told to use a phone book to get customers, right? What was that like?
First day on the job, my broker came in, slapped the phone book on my desk and said, "Get busy, there's your business." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "It's called dialing for dollars." And literally, that's what I had to do at the time. It was active prospecting. I literally opened the phone book. I just opened it up to the middle, picked a name, picked up the phone, started calling.
That sounds painful, Garry.
It was brutal.
I'm glad those olden days, that was like back in the days of black and white, right? That's how my kids joke around. It's like, Dad, when you were a kid, were things black and white? Garry, when you first got in the business, was it all black and white? Yeah, well, the phone book was black and white, right? So
our cars were like the Flintstones, man. But the fact is, Chris, is that that was the old school way of selling real estate. And unfortunately, still to this day, a lot of brokers and trainers out there are educating real estate agents about this is how you build a business. It's called dialing for dollars.
That lineage and training or advice or whatever you want to call it, I think that's created this misconception that the only way to get a customer in real estate is just by sheer activity. Now, my preference and our preference is actually to use marketing in conjunction with activity, but marketing really opens up and expands who we can reach out to, because instead of being limited to, let's say, the phone book as an audience, but rather we can choose an audience, right? You might choose an audience. Maybe you'll choose a specific neighborhood. Maybe you'll choose a specific niche or price point within the market, right? You start to choose an audience. Marketing, once you've chosen your audience, then you craft your message for that audience, and then you get that message in front of them. But here's what I have found. Marketing requires consistency. To do marketing in real estate, you have to do it consistently over time. And that's really where things start to break down. Right?
Absolutely. You want to know why, Chris? An effective marketing strategy, when executed and paralleled with some active prospecting, what that does is it makes me successful and very, very busy with a lot of clients. That's a great thing, short term.
If you look at it, there's a reason why marketing consistently works. And Garry, you know this, and anyone who's followed our show any length of time knows this, but according to the National Association of Realtors, the number one determining factor that a seller uses in choosing their listing agent is the listing agent's reputation. So we're getting down into, and reputations are built over time. They're communicated and amplified over time. It's not something that's a flash in a pan. It takes time. It takes consistency. And if you want to have a reputation in the marketplace, marketing can accelerate that for sure, yet it still takes consistency over time. And I find that that's where most of us fall down. And I'm just as guilty as anybody else. Gary, I know you are as well, is we get busy. And then we stop doing marketing. We stop doing those marketing activities that produce us clients. There is a solution to this. There's a wonderful solution, and it's called putting your marketing on autopilot, or putting your client acquisition on autopilot, or putting your listing or lead generation on autopilot. There's actually technology and tools and services now for services out there that allow us to delegate, right? Delegate some of these activities to either a tool, a technology, a service, a product. We have options now that we didn't have in the past.
And that's what we had options, Chris, but the option was very, very expensive. That means hiring staff to do this for you.
Yes.
That was the old way of doing real estate, and that was super expensive.
So putting your marketing on autopilot, there's actually a technical term that people in marketing use for this. It's called marketing automation. But in its most simple form, and I think most of us has experienced it, it's the autoresponder, like the out of office notification that we would set in our email or in Outlook when we go on vacation, right? That's an autoresponder of just letting somebody know when they email you that you're out of town, and that email happens automatically. That's marketing automation. It's simple and it's really specific context, but it really isn't that any different, because the more that it happens automatically, the less you have to worry about it. The more it happens automatically, the consistency occurs without you having to worry about it.
Man, so if I can trust something else to make sure that this gets done, and I don't have to trust myself, I have a higher level of trust that it's going to be done.
Hey, and here's the thing. It's not that we're not competent, right? Like, I feel like in real estate, we beat ourselves up a little bit over this issue because we might say to ourselves, yeah, I should do this. I should do that. I ought to be doing more of insert XYZ. But the reason why we run into this issue in real estate is we're solopreneurs. We are chief cook, bottle washer, CEO, all that stuff. So we have to put our servicing hat on when we're working with a customer. We have to put our marketing hat on. We have to put our CEO hat on. We have to put every other hat on because we're the person who does all of it. And so there's a lot of things that we can do to put parts of our real estate practice onto autopilot. And that's what we want to focus on in this episode, is getting into what are the use cases? What are the examples? What are the different ways that we might be able to apply this concept of marketing automation to our real estate practice?
All right, Chris, I think that's an awesome overview and like big 60,000 foot view of the real estate business, and coming down to, yes, we've got to automate some of these things, because what we realize is in this fast-paced world, we just can't do it all on our own. And so what I'd love to do is let's bring Kyle into this conversation, because Kyle, you have so much knowledge about marketing, automation, lead generation, conversion, using technologies and solutions to make our lives, real estate agents' lives, a lot easier than it used to be.
This is a broad topic. Kyle, where should we start?
I think, a lot of this automation doesn't do much good if you don't actually have some clients to work with. So why don't we start at the very beginning with lead generation, getting customers, clients to reach out to you. This will be true for most real estate agents out there. 70 to 80% of your business is going to come from your sphere of influence. Repeat clients, referrals, just reaching out through your network.
Recommendations, all that stuff.
So if I were to target one source of business, I'd make sure I was getting everything I could out of the sphere of influence. So what does automating marketing to your sphere of influence look like? Well, if you've watched our stuff before, and maybe we can have a little link pop up to our past video on our 5-step marketing system, you can reach out consistently every month with useful information to make sure you stay top of mind, omnipresent. You're out across all the socials. You're sparking real estate conversations with your sphere of influence through, useful social media posts, emails, checking in with people. All of that stuff can be automated. I think a lot of the times we look at it and we're like, I have to log into Facebook 4 times a week and create these posts one-off to, have any sort of effect. And yes, unless you find the tools to help you do it really easily, right? So a base level could be you just find a social post scheduler. Those exist. They're out there. They're free and paid versions. But then you're creating the post yourself, right? You have to generate the content in some form or another.
Oh, man, hold on, Kyle. Kyle, when you just said that, I don't know how many real estate agents cringe with me. Like everybody here who's a real estate agent or broker, we're cringing when you say, well, now you've got to create the content. I'm like, oh, it's like kryptonite to us. So
I think there's different levels, right? So when you're talking about automation here, yes. I mean, right now, if you think about it though, Gary, yes, the content's a pain in the butt, PIB. However, even though it's a pain in the butt, so is scheduling that stuff out. So if you could actually cut some of the pain in the butt out, right? So if you take that whole pie, and let's say the content is sort of the thing that's hard, and don't worry, there are solutions out there, right? But I just want, I want to be able to say that even if you could just get the scheduling component down, that's more automation than you have right now, right? Like, and more likely you're just not doing it. And so being able to have it scheduled out. But there's services out there. Like we have a service where we provide content for people in real estate, for example. It's out there if you look for it. And so you can take content, for example, like what we provide. We provide content for social media. We provide content for emails and websites, so on and so forth, for people in real estate context. Well, you could take content and then schedule that out using a scheduler. Now you have some marketing automation. Kyle, you referred to our 5-step real estate marketing system. You don't even have to automate all 5 steps. What if you just automated one of the steps, 2 of the steps, 3 of the steps?
I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up when they think about automation, is they want to salute, they think it's all or nothing, right? Either you automate everything or you automate nothing. But as I sort of like work through examples or give examples, I'm going to try to provide you guys with like a base, a good, better, best in terms of automation where you can free up some of your time or all of your time. If it's something you enjoy doing, maybe you just pick some of the parts you don't like. Like for social media, for example, maybe you like the content creation, hate the manual work of scheduling, right? That's that base level we talked about. But like you were saying, we do have, our marketing club service that will generate all of the content, all of the emails, all the stuff for you. There are services like ours that exist where it's hands off. You click a button and it's all automated for you. But there's levels in between. There's price points in between. So I think it's just important to, like, as you work through this stuff, identify the tasks that are just repetitive, that stare you in the face every week. It's like, God, I know I need to do this. I know I need to do marketing, but it's the last thing I want to do. That's the stuff you should look at automating, because it's going to free you to focus on the stuff that gives you excitement. And when you're excited about something, you're just going to do more of it, right?
In addition to scheduling out like some of our marketing, what are some of the other things that we can do? Like, I don't know, like here's a good example, something that I spend a lot of time doing in our real estate practice, marketing listings. I spend a tremendous amount of time marketing listings. I love it, but first off, I like it, so I don't mind doing it. However, I do spend a lot of time doing it. If I could spend a little bit less time, what are some ways, Kyle, for me to automate some of my listing?
There's a ton of stuff you have to do. You have to write the listing description, which blank page syndrome. I know a lot of people get tripped up just needing to, like, how do I promote this thing? How do I present it in a way that's going to appeal to buyers? If you're doing listing videos, which you should be doing, how best to capture that video and then get it into things that you can share and promote to get the home or exposure. Going back to the beginning, if we're looking at writing a listing description, well, there's this new tool, maybe you've heard of it, called ChatGPT. There's prompts you can use to make that super easy. You can feed it the features of the home, the area it's in, what are the highlights, what do you think the selling features are? It'll craft that narrative for you as long as you kind of get in there and craft the prompt a little bit.
Using AI isn't necessarily like what people would think of when it comes to marketing automation or putting your marketing on autopilot, but it absolutely is, because, for example, I have a listing that I had to create a description for just the other day. And so I can use ChatGPT now using our listing description tool to just quickly generate that same description that would have otherwise probably taken me 45 minutes to an hour, 5 minutes, right? That 5 minutes is the total time, right? The total time to create the listing page on our website, 5 minutes. Why? Because that little automation makes it a little bit easier. So we're really big on video with listings, and for almost all of our listings, I'll usually go out, film a listing video. So the format that I like to use for marketing a listing is I'll do a long form video, right? So that'll be, it's a horizontal view video. Think of the typical YouTube video. It's going to be anywhere from, 3 to 10 minutes long. And it's literally like a walking tour of the home. And so we'll craft that, edit that. It's kind of like a more highly produced version of our videos. And that's something that'll make it onto our channel. And then I'll promote that. I'll put that on the website of an actual listing. But there's another step that I do that I think is maybe even more important. And that's cutting that long form video into short form videos, mobile friendly short form videos. So I take the long form video, or in the past, I would have to take that long form video and painstakingly edit, right, little 1-minute clips out of that video. And then I have to change the formatting because I want it to be mobile friendly. So for a mobile device, right? Because that's what is going to work for the ads that I'm going to use to generate more traffic for that listing. That process usually would take me a couple hours. There's a tool now that you could just give it a video called Munch, and it'll literally spit out, half a dozen different mobile friendly, right, vertical view videos based on the long form video that I had. Saves me tons of time. Now, are the videos perfect? Not by any stretch. Are most of them good enough to publish? Yes. And that is an easy way to enhance and add value, or even add sort of like a unique way of marketing a listing, because most people aren't doing what I just described. And it's automated. It's being done for me. I don't have to edit all of those little videos. I just drop that. I can actually just take the URL from YouTube, send it over to Munch, chops up the video for me. So another really easy automation that you can use for listing marketing.
And Chris, I think that's so important, because if I had to bet, a lot of people, you consider yourself an amateur video editor, right? You dabbled.
Yeah, sure. I've dabbled.
I think most people listening might not even be at that level, right? So whereas it's a time thing for you, maybe it's even a barrier to entry thing for other people. Like, I couldn't do short form video. I don't know how to edit that. If you can carry your phone around a listing for 30 minutes and just capture some of the highlight features and give it to Munch, it's done for you. And something's better than nothing. So,
an interesting thing to explore, though, and this is something that just popped in my mind, is there's a difference between using tools, like what we've been talking about, using tools for the most part, right? AI is a tool, and all of these apps that we're talking about, they're just tools. But there's services out there as well. And services represent an automation of sorts because we can delegate to a service. A great example is transaction management, right? You don't have to manage the transaction yourself. In fact, there could be people out there who will, in fact, manage it better than you, right? There are people who are very much into the details and all the minutia, and you may not be that person. You may have the intention to serve your customer at, better than anybody else. However, sometimes you may get busy. You may not be like a in the weeds kind of person. And so delegating to, a transaction management, either software or person,
or a combination of the two, right?
Or a combination of both.
Here's the thing, kind of like what we were talking about earlier is, when I first started automating my marketing, I hired somebody for $45,000 a year. Now, this was in $1997, right? So that's a lot of money in today's dollars. Now, like Kyle was saying, hey, there's technology, there are services out there that can do it for a tiny, tiny fraction of the cost. Transaction management. In the height of my career, I had 2 transaction managers on staff, full-time staff, working for me in my office. Now, fast forward to today, because transaction management has become such a beast, and that we've got to make sure that all I's are dotted, all T's are crossed, so many people say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go start a transaction management business, and I'm going to use a transaction management software to update you and your clients throughout the process, and I'm just going to charge you a per transaction fee. All of a sudden, that headache of having 2 full-time staff people who I may or may not keep busy all year long is gone. I outsourced this. They're using technologies that automate a whole lot of things. You can do this with listing management too, by the way. You can have listing managers using listing management software who are updating you and your clients about everything that's happening, all the showings, all the feedback. Same with transaction management, making sure that everything happens in a sequential order and that you get to closing on time successfully. So why should I be doing that as a real estate professional? Because that's not my highest and best use. I also don't like it, and I'm not good at it. So why would I be doing that?
Let me ask you this.
I can outsource it affordably.
Let me ask you this, Gary. What's a range do you think that's acceptable? Because, for some people, I think there might be a sticker shock until you realize you're getting what you pay for when it comes to transaction management. What's an acceptable range in your mind for?
Well, so it depends on the marketplace, right? Because, if you're selling in a marketplace where the average sales price is $150,000, you should expect to pay a completely different transaction management fee than where the average sales price is $1.2 million. With that, you should be looking at, I've seen ranges all the way from $250 per transaction to about $700 per transaction. And it also depends on the services, like the level of service that you're going to get and how many touch points you're going to get throughout the transaction. So just take a look at that. Another thing, I like to make sure that whomever is servicing my transactions actually has knowledge of the area that I live. I don't want somebody from New York City managing my transactions in Washington State. So it's very
There's a
important.
lot of local nuance that they have to be familiar with in order to be able to navigate.
They're going to be communicating with my clients. They're going to be communicating with title, with lenders, with legal. I need them familiar with what's going on in that region.
I was thinking, when you have that listing, and if you're marketing that listing, something happens is you get inquiries about that listing. And
I sure hope so.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, it's actually one of the benefits of being a listing agent, right? Is people contacting you.
Let's back up 1 second. Without marketing automation that Kyle was just talking about, and if you do this all on your own and you have crappy marketing, crappy narratives, horrible photos, no video, no exposure, no website, no promotion, you're probably in the majority of people who are like, well, I don't get any inquiries on my listings.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a lot of people. If you don't take advantage of the listing as a marketing opportunity and you just drop it in the MLS and put a sign in the yard and hope that thing sells, you're not taking advantage, right, to be able to generate maximum opportunity for your customer and for yourself. And so, let's say though you have done that listing marketing well, and you're starting to get questions about that property. One of the biggest complaints that consumers have about us in real estate is lack of response. Gary, you had quoted a study for me that showed that only it was a very horrible percentage of people people followed up. Right?
So National Association of Realtors did a study some time ago looking at when do real estate agents respond to inquiries on their listings. The sad result that they came out with is that even if the real estate agent responds to the inquiry, on average, it takes more than 24 hours for them to respond to the inquiry.
You know what's so sad about that, Gary, is that more often than not, people will just work with the person who responds first. Sometimes it is actually just a speed game. It is because it says something, right? Like they care the most, they're the most honest, or the most on it, the person who responds first. But it is statistically likely that the person who responds first is going to get the business.
Well, that's a great point, Kyle. So if that is the case, and we need to deliver on that kind of level of service to differentiate, because the name of the game is differentiation. It's about building trust. How do we do that when we're getting all these inquiries on listings, especially now when listing inventory is really, really, really low? Let's assume I've done all of the marketing automation, Kyle, that you were talking about, and I'm just rocking it. I'm going to get a lot of inquiries. How do I make sure that I don't fall into that more than 24-hour kind of pool of real estate agents?
Right. Well, the answer is definitely not to just respond to every notification that pops up on your phone. That is not the way to do it. That's why it takes 24 hours, and most people just can't keep up. You need a system that will just send something off right away as soon as somebody responds. These exist. They're built into everything now. They're built into your CRMs, whether you have your own email platform, the number of ways that you can set this up. But the tools exist where you can craft an email that goes out to respond to everybody, even if it's saying, I'm busy with clients at the moment, and I will respond to you as soon as I can. Thanks so much for your interest in this listing. But they get the response, and then you can follow up with them in time, right? But they get the immediate response with some additional information about the listing, whatever it is. That should be super easy to set up with whatever tools you have available.
Yeah, that's like the autoresponder. You could reply with just some more details, a little bit more information, or if you have frequent questions that keep coming in, but just letting people know that I got your message, here's a little bit more information, and I'll be in touch. That way they're not left hanging, right? And I think that's the issue, is people are okay if they know that you got the message and that you are going to get back to them if they know that you got the message and that you're going to get back to them. And you have to communicate that expectation. Otherwise, it's an expectation that they have that's going to go unmet. An easy thing to do is I think roughly half of everybody is on Gmail, right? A lot of people are on Gmail. Did you know that you can use canned responses or email templates to be able to respond? And you can actually create canned responses. And these are just simply email replies that, yes, technically you still have to hit send on the email, but you don't have to write the dang email because you write it once and then you choose that template to send to each people who respond to that listing. So just one little slight automation, spending 5 minutes to craft that or to edit that canned response, because if you have that response, all you have to do is change the listing details. You do that one time, so it maybe takes a couple of minutes on the first time, and then you just keep hitting send for every one of those inquiries. Again, makes your life easier. And it just takes a little bit of discipline to say, I'm going to learn this new tool. I'm going to learn this new feature. Since, if you're not using a transaction manager to respond, or you don't have a person respond, right, then you have to respond. But this is a way you can do so, right? You can use simple tools like that. A great tool that actually sparks my mind, because, we're talking about listings, we're talking about finding customers, is post-transaction communication, right? And one of the things that usually gets overlooked post-transaction is, for the most part, we know, especially if you're following the show, you're probably taking really good care of your customers. If I had to bet a buffalo nickel, I'd say most of you are providing 5-star experiences to your customers. That's what I would bet. But I would bet also another buffalo nickel that you're not asking those customers to review you on Google every time you service a customer, right? And the fact is, if you want more local business, if you want more, and this is a great marketing automation, is let Google do some of the work for you. But if you want to show up in searches when people search real estate agent near me, realtor near me, right? That's going to use Google's local marketing solutions, which is going to be things like having Google reviews, having lots of Google reviews. The more Google reviews you have, the higher you show up on Google's radar in terms of being a viable option for people searching for realtor near me, which means we can automate the request or the ask after every transaction. And that's a simple one, right? We actually have templates. I know in our content library that we have is at the Paperless Agent, we've created templates where you just drop that into that canned response or automation. It can just literally be an email that fires out, or that as long as you have the template, you're saving time and you're getting those reviews. Those are an asset for you. Every single Google review that you have that's on Google is an asset for your real estate practice. And that asset can be built using a marketing automation and just automatically sending that email out to everybody who you either help sell a home or help buy a home. The quality of the review is not going to matter. The quality of the review matters, but whether it's buy side, sell side doesn't matter as much. But that can be put on autopilot as well. What are some other ways? We've been chit-chatting. We've talked a lot about marketing stuff. We talked about transaction management. We talked about post-transaction. What are some of the unique things or interesting ways that are fast and easy to implement?
Well, to build up this idea on sort of like things happen and you need actions to take place afterwards, right? You close a deal, you need an email to go out afterwards asking for a review. Well, if we go back to the beginning in terms of generating lead opportunities, I'm sure most of you know, when people first reach out to you, it's actually very rare that they're willing or they're ready to buy or sell right that second. Most of the time, there's a bunch of work you need to do to build a relationship, to be the person providing them with useful information while they sort of get to that stage where they're ready to pull the trigger, list their home, buy a home. A lot of that can be automated. If we're talking about these same sort of email automation tools, well, you could have a whole campaign that goes out. Say someone reaches out to you saying, I'm renting right now, but we're thinking about buying in the next year or so. Well, that's a campaign you can craft out that you could add that person to that will go out over time that you then don't have to think about again. You're providing them with the information they need. You're staying in touch, but you're not having to keep track of it in your head. You just know it's happening in the background. There are technologies and tools you can use to do stuff like that. Same on the seller side, as with the buyer side. I think those are pretty common sort of lead nurture is what they're called, follow-up campaigns that you can do.
Yeah, as we're talking about it, so if I had to categorize, the different methods, we've got technology automations, right? Like, so that's like the scheduling tool that we had talked about, and even like using Gmail's autoresponder or canned response tool, right? Those are all like technology types of things. And then we also talked a little bit about like where there's services, where there's content made for you. And that's, the technology does require, usually the technology is more of the delivery mechanism for the message, but the cultivation of the message itself can be automated, right? Either through service or, a little bit of AI is making that also possible. And then you have the delivery, you have the content, the Munch thing that we had discussed, that's kind of like modifying content to match more delivery options. We talked a little bit about transaction management. Gary, to your point, that was a blend of service and technology. I think the thing that's interesting to look at and the one to explore a little bit more though is, and because I don't think when we think of marketing automation, this doesn't really come to mind for me, is the services that are out there. What's interesting for me, I think the services, there's no learning curve for you as a real estate professional. And so I think there's like two tips. There's more than this, but like if I were to generally categorize it, there's people out there in real estate who are okay with the learning curve connected to marketing and technology. I would say I don't know what the size of that population is, but there is a size of the population that they're okay with it and they're willing to do it. There's another side though of the population. We don't want to deal with the technology. We don't want to know what the latest marketing trend is or what kind of social media thing is working or not. We just want to go out and help people buy and sell real estate. And for that person who is like, I don't want to deal with technology, I don't want to deal with having to stay on top of all these things, that person probably should explore services over looking at tools, because I feel like services are going to more adequately give that person what they need. There's no learning curve with a service, right? Would you guys agree with that assessment?
The person you're describing there, Chris, is me, because I've spent the past 26 years of my career learning different technologies and tools to really either amplify my service or streamline and reduce my sales cycle so I can sell more real estate. I know as a real estate professional, my highest and best use of my time is with my client. That's it. And so for me to now know, oh my gosh, there are services, there are companies out there like the Paperless Agent who have tools and services that are combined to where I just hand things off and I'm like, here, you guys go do this because I'm going to do what I need to do and you do what you need to do. That to me is a descriptor of who I am. And if I'm going to invest any money into my business, it's going to be on business development and growth and giving me my time back. And then what's great about that is I can do whatever I want with that time. I'm getting my time back. I can choose to sell more real estate, spend more time with my clients, spend time with my family, go on vacation, or learn how to underwater basket weave. It doesn't matter because all of a sudden it's my time back. And I think that's what we're talking about through this. Would you agree, Kyle, is that this whole thing is about getting our time back and solving the whole problem of churn and attrition in real estate. I don't want to leave this industry, but I got to figure out how not to spend my time doing things I shouldn't be doing.
Absolutely. I mean, burnout's such a common thing in real estate because we always feel like we have to do it all. And I think that's why, Chris, I'll go back to like services and automations. It is important to just start with the list of all the things you have to do. Everyone's going to be at a different point. Gary, you were obviously at a point where you could hire full services to come in and take all that stuff on for you. And that was the best case for you. For other people, it might be as simple as the autoresponders to buy enough time back to do the next thing that will get them the next group of clients. And then it builds on each other until you get to the full services. But it all starts sort of identifying those things that are just like, man, this is a grind. I wish I didn't have to respond to all this thing. I wish I didn't have to be on call so much for these types of things. And that's the stuff where you can start putting this stuff into place, I think, and get a result really fast.
Gary, it's interesting. I am more of the technical person, but with each passing year, I find myself wanting to learn less about the technology. Does that make sense? And it's because, we're selling more real estate. We're selling more interesting real estate. So I really, I want to focus on certain aspects of that. For me, like I said, I love marketing listings. But even within that, there's a certain aspect of marketing listing that I like the most, which is the planning and creation of the videos that we use to market. Well, there's a whole other bunch of stuff now that I really don't want to do. And so what are my options? Well, I can delegate, I can use tools, I can automate. And I think that's what's cool about this discussion that we're having, is that you can meet where you're at. Like if you're in Gary's stage, you're like, I don't want to deal with that stuff. Then you should look for services to take that on for you. You know, if you're like me, where there's things that you want to do and things that you don't want to do, well, then you can kind of cherry pick between tools, tech, and automation and services to be able to figure that out. Or to Kyle's point, right? If you're really just getting started, a simple autoresponder might be all you need to get started. But getting that list of all the things is going to be the way for you to start discerning, should I automate this or should I automate that? It essentially becomes a checklist over time of, I got this done. You know, at a certain point, you might even set goals for yourself off of that initial checklist. Say, can I automate 10% of these activities? Can I automate 20%, 30%, 50%, right? Now, all of a sudden, you're going to have all that extra time. To Gary's point, what are you going to do with that time? You know, for many of you, you're going to go sell more real estate. And so there's going to be new things, new campaigns, new ways, new business development opportunities to do it. Others, maybe you're like, you know what? I've been selling real estate and I need a break, so I'm going to take a vacation. And that's okay. You should be doing that. You should be spending time with your friends and family, filling yourself back up, because real estate can drain you. And so all these automations, they represent opportunities to make that happen.
And I would just say, if you need help or some little identifier to help you pick out what those first activities should be, the phrase I hear used all the time is, I should be blank. I know I should be marketing, but everything else comes first. I know I should be following up right away, but who has the time? Those are the activities, the I know I should be's, that you should look at sort of offloading in different ways first to free you up to do the stuff that's probably more pressing and more demanding and, you know, higher value use.
Okay, so what I'd like to be able to do is, in our show notes here, we're going to put links to the different services and tools that we've mentioned during the show, whether it be our services or the other ones, tools and automations that are out there. Let's include a list there. And if you liked what you've heard today, do us a big favor. Go ahead and like this video, subscribe to our channel, and drop a comment or even share this video with somebody who you think could benefit. And we will see you in the next episode. Thank you and take care.